Take the H at the end of earth, bring it to the front. What do you get? Heart.
Quantum physician Bobby Apeiron gets to the heart of creating a true spiritual connection.
People talk about living in the now, and the only way to get there is to come into the heart space, because the heart is the gateway, the portal to that divine spark. That is the oneness.
And opening yourself up to your full creator potential. Does this all just lie in our ability to imagine?
100%. Anything is possible if we just believe.
On an all-new Intentional Living with Courtney Myers. Hi, Bobby. Thank you so much for joining me. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Intentional Living with Courtney Myers. I'm very excited to talk to you today all about your journey. I think that's where I want to start, because I know you had a big awakening and a huge spiritual shift in everything that you were doing when you were in med school, and now you've turned into you've gone into more of the holistic healing side of things, which I want to get into that too, the quantum physics and all those good like subconscious reprogramming things that you do. But let's start with you. Let's get to know you. So I know you a little bit. You are my husband's cousin's husband. And so this is kind of a family affair today, which is exciting that we get to have this talk. But let's dive in and tell me about you and your awakening, and just kind of what brought you from the world of medicine into the world of holistic healing.
Thank you so much for having me, Courtney. It's such an honor to be here, and I'm so grateful to be having this conversation with you and to be a part of the family. I started out in undergrad studying physiology and nutrition. I'd always had my sights set on medicine. After studying undergrad, I applied to a bunch of different medical schools and ended up getting accepted to and completing my medical degree. So that's allopathic medical training, Western medicine, at the University of Nevada, Reno School of Medicine. And while I was there, I started to really become jaded with the whole process, with the whole experience. I went into medicine originally to help people, support people, heal people. I had my own things that I was dealing with and recognized a lot of issues, conditions, diseases within my family, my genetic line. And I wanted to resolve those. I wanted to heal those. But entering into medical school, after taking that first exam, I realized or came to the awareness that it was simply a continuation of my undergraduate training and education. And I started to recognize some patterns within medicine that weren't actually supportive or conducive to creating true health and wholeness. For instance, I was a general manager at our student outreach clinic, which was a community-based angel clinic where we got to serve the surrounding population for free. It was a beautiful opportunity, and I'm so grateful for all the people who gave their time, their energy, their knowledge, and their wisdom to create a better community. But one thing I saw was that during lunch or dinner, they would order pizza for the clinic. And I was like, what are we doing here? We're trying to support people in their, diseases, healing from their disease processes. All the while, we're creating disease within our own healing community, within our own group of physicians and residents. So I took it upon myself and asked for a budget increase and decided to start cooking healthier meals for everyone there. I also went ahead and studied the direct link between sarcopenic obesity, which means low muscle mass, high body fat percentage, and childhood cancer, and found that a lot of the drugs we were using, the chemotoxic agents, the steroids, etc., were having these really long-term adverse effects, what we call comorbidities, so creating other conditions later on down the road. So they may have been addressing the cancer at the time, but they were seeding the environment, seeding the opportunity for these other disease states to arise later on in life. And I brought this up to my attending at the time. He said, it's just really difficult to change the standard of care. And I was only going to be in medical school for another year. And it would not have been a sufficient amount of time for me to actually make any real changes in the way that the machine operated. So I continued through medical school, just becoming further and further separated from myself, more and more jaded, all the way to the point that I ended up pursuing a residency training in pathology. And if you or your listeners aren't aware what pathology is, it's the guys in the microscope. We're sitting there looking at cells, looking at tissue. We're doing blood exchanges, we're doing transfusions, and we're really looking quite literally at the cellular structure, the cellular expression of these disease states to diagnose disease. And I'm a people person. I love talking to people. I love working with people. I love hearing people's stories. And I had originally planned on going into family medicine. The process, however, completely guided me towards that path, that seclusion, that isolation. It's a part of the system, almost like a dehumanization that occurs throughout that process, where we have to be able to step back and look at our patients, look at clients as objects, as machines, for us to understand these mechanical processes, if they are truly mechanical in nature. So I ended up matching at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, for a residency training in pathology and laboratory medicine. And about 6 months into that, I was working on my autopsy rotation, which is, autopsy means to see self, but it's what our society has as medical examiners or coroners. And I was doing these autopsies. So I was actually cutting people open and looking at their internal organs, looking at their disease states, again, on a systemic and a cellular level. Little did I know, what I was actually doing was preparing myself to experience a spiritual autopsy, where I was to dive deep into myself, energetically, spiritually, in my inner planes. So through a series of tumultuous experiences, stressors from moving to a new place, COVID, family issues, relationship issues, I kind of hit this tipping point, the last straw that broke the camel's back. And I experienced what I call a spiritual awakening. There are many other names for it, depending on what perspective you'd like to take. Experiencing a dark night of the soul, that's part of a spiritual awakening. A life review can oftentimes also be part of a spiritual awakening, which I experienced. And that's where I relived all of the trauma, all of the pain, all of the suffering, the suppressed emotions that I had caused others and that others had caused me. I had a cosmic oneness, a cosmic awareness experience. What that is I saw myself from the perspective of the infinite throughout all space and time, meaning I was able to look at, in my mind's eye, a relationship that I had with a family member, a friend, a job, a hobby, and see myself as the creator of that experience, both the subject and the object, but also the creation. And to hold those perspectives simultaneously was an extremely powerful, yet very disequilibrating experience. Because before this experience, I believed myself to be separate. My identity was in this physical form, this body, a son, a medical doctor, an athlete, an academic, a researcher, a friend, all of these different hats that I was wearing. I believed them to be me. Mm-hmm. And in this experience, I realized then that those were all expressions of who I truly am. Mm. And so through a process of meditation, deep introspection, research into esoteric teachings, Eastern philosophy, spirituality, different practices, alchemy, psychology, I started to kind of piece back together my psyche. I started to rebuild my worldview. I started to rebuild who I was, my identity as the infinite, now expressing itself in all of these different ways. In that process, I recognized a lot of shortcomings and issues with the current medical paradigm. One of those being that medicine is the third leading cause of death in the United States. You can find that anywhere.
Wow.
And that's not because someone comes in with a terminal illness and they're not able to do something about it. That's due to medical error or standards of practice that create or eventually cause deeper disease and ultimately death. So I personally was suffering from my own conditions, my own diseases. I had eosinophilic esophagitis, which is a chronic autoimmune disease of the esophagus. And Western medicine said that I would be on proton pump inhibitors, which are like the purple pill or Nexium, for the rest of my life. And in this process of awakening, I realized I don't have to align with that. I don't have to agree with that belief system. I can find another way. There's another way to create and manifest myself in this space and time. And so I did. And I am now disease-free from that. I was taking many other substances, Adderall for ADHD, which I was diagnosed with, marijuana at night to put me down from the upper of Adderall, using all of these external powers of control to guide my internal processes, becoming dependent wholly and completely on everything outside of myself and not being empowered to create within. So I experienced this deep, deep power of possibility within myself, this creator potential that had been lying dormant my whole life. And so once I discovered the power of this, I had to start sharing it with people.
Yeah.
And I decided to leave Western medicine, start my own business. I'm co-founder of Apeiron Eros Wellness Academy along with my wife, Shanley Apeiron. And this is where we follow our 4 pillars, our 4 tenets through and walk people. We call students, clients, an activation of awareness, an empowerment of self-mastery, a willing of connection, ultimately to ascend consciousness. And in ascending consciousness, what we're able to do is lighten up and lift ourselves up from the density. When I say density, I mean the limited, rigid perspectives that people hold, the limiting beliefs through patterns of imprintation from societal, familial, religious constructs that we take on as ourselves, we take on as our identities, as our belief systems, especially happening between the ages of 0 and 7. We're in a theta brainwave state, Courtney. We're hypnotic. Yeah. Imagine a pipe that is just wide open, soaking everything in, everything. And that's important when we're learning how to speak, when we're learning how to move our body, how to connect with our body, how to engage with the external environment. But there's also a drawback to that. And we begin to believe things that other people tell us without questioning, without having that ability to say, is this true? We just simply take it on. The conscious mind operates at a rate of 126 bits of information per second, and the subconscious mind at 11 million bits of information per second.
Wow.
We were talking about computers recently. So think about a processing speed, the ability to perceive information, right? In 11 million bits of information per second, the subconscious mind, the body, is taking in everything from the environment. Not just what is being seen, not just what is being heard, not just what is being felt, smelt, or tasted. Much like a neuron perceives electromagnetic energy, so too does the body perceive that electromagnetic energy around, whether we are aware of it or not. Mm-hmm. So to shift the subconscious patterns of belief, those identities that are just underneath our awareness, it would be like taking a water faucet at your home, and attempting to shift the direction of Niagara Falls. That can be quite a feat, right?
Yeah.
So now I have been able and been honored to have the experience of becoming one with that subconscious mind, becoming one with the 11 million bits of information per second, becoming one with the Niagara Falls. And like I said, it was a very disequilibrating experience because I was used to only experiencing or only perceiving 126 bits of information per second, or the water faucet.
Yeah.
So in opening myself up to that subconscious aspect, that power, now I am able to guide other people to that place where they can also tap in to that infinite power, that infinite wisdom within them.
So you're actually helping people tap into their creator being, I can't say the word right now, tap into who they really are on an inner core level. And a lot of what my work and message is helping you to understand who you are on an authentic level, which is similar to what you're saying is, you're given all these things, especially as a child, which I have heard that your first, I thought, 5 to 7 years are just so crucial in the amount of information you take, the sponge. If you even just think about it, how quickly your child goes from not being able to roll over to running. It seems like a long time when you're a parent going through it, but it really isn't. And in the span of your year, how much they can grow and they expand and they move, and you're about to be a dad. So you're going to experience it from that end on your own. But and even like you were saying, the labels that are put onto us and things like that as a child, and it's not even necessarily malicious. It's just what your learned behavior is, or your family of origin believes, or whatever you are being, the environment you are coming up in can shape that if you're only allowed to believe or see things through your conscious mind. But when you can tap into your creator being, when you can tap into that subconscious self, you start to question a little bit more. You start to understand a little bit more. And that's what really helps you to tap into who you are on an authentic level. Because, I'm curious. I'm curious about your opinion on this, because kind of what you're saying, and I know this is a big theory in spirituality, is we are all one. But if you are trying to find out who you are on an authentic level, we all do have a uniqueness. So how do those two concepts come together? So if you're trying to tap into the oneness of all, but then you also want to find out who you are on an authentic level, how do those two concepts live in conjunction?
Great question. Imagine the human body. We could all agree it is by far the most beautiful design and technology that we have on our planet. Mm-hmm. Every single technology that we have created in the world has mimicked or mirrored a process or a structure within the human body. Every single one.
Wow, yeah.
So all of my information, all of my understanding, all of my ability to connect comes from my deep understanding and awareness of the body. Mm-hmm. Because it's about relating everything outside of ourselves to everything within us. Mm-hmm. To answer the question, let's look at the human body.
Okay.
Are you familiar with the MHC class 1 receptor on the human body?
No.
This is a receptor, MHC class 1, major histocompatibility complex class 1. Mm-hmm. Okay. It is on every single cell in a well-functioning body, in a well-oiled machine. And what it does is it recognizes, it says to the other cell, I am you. Namaste. And you are me. That is the oneness.
Okay.
If a cell does not have an MHC class 1, or it has one that is distorted, mutated, not recognized as self, what do we start creating within the body? Allergy, autoimmune disease, separation, because we no longer recognize self as self. Now, a heart cell has a very different expression of genes, right? But each cell in the human body has the exact same chromosomes, same genetic makeup. Aside from there are exceptions to every rule, but as a generalized statement, every cell has the same genetic makeup. That is the oneness, right? Now, the way that genetic makeup is expressed from a heart cell to a liver cell to a brain cell is different. And it shifts the expression, how that cell now shows up. What proteins does that cell produce? What is its role? What perspective is it going to express and take of the one? So the uniqueness, the individuation, the differentiation of the human form, now looking at you and I, Courtney, as cells in a larger being, which is one. Imagine a babushka doll expanded out. We have one at the center that opens, right, to a bigger one. We open it up. Oh, there's another one inside. Open it up, another one inside. So trace that. I call that, those are kind of patterns of ascension, patterns of relationship. So if we look at the very core of it, then that is the one. Now the one is contained within every expansion of that. So we could take it all the way from the one energetically, spiritually as source, contained within each cell, contained within each atom, really. And expanding that, okay, atomic scale. Now let's expand it out a little bit further. Let's go to a molecular scale. Then let's go to a compound scale. Let's go to a organelle, cellular, tissue, organ system, human, species. So for us in humanity to operate like a healthy human body, we have to first and foremost recognize each other as ourselves. In the world today, we've hyper-focused on our differentiation and our individuation, forgetting that foundation that we are one. So it's the ability to express oneself, intentionally express oneself as differentiated, as individuated, while still holding the awareness, the perspective that we are one.
So we're consciously choosing to put ourselves out and to present ourselves in a way which individuates us, but we need to come back to remembering that we all come from source. We all come from the one singular thing. We all have that one. I see it in my mind as like a spark, like almost like a little pilot light inside of you, kind of like in your heart, in your chest. That's kind of like, I'm very visual. So that's how I've always like, there's a, they call it a spark, your intuitive spark, things like that. That is kind of the way I visualize it. Like we all have that little pilot light inside of us. As long as that's burning, we're still going. But now you're trying to put out, we choose to express ourselves in an individual way. And that's kind of the difference between us, the oneness and the individuality, the uniqueness of us. Is that simplified variation of it a little bit, or am I completely off base here?
You're spot on. You're spot on. I love the pilot light analogy.
Yeah.
It's interesting, right? We call it a spark. Why do we call it a spark? Because the heart has autorhythmic cells. They're some of the only tech that creates its own light. Think about that. So when you, like you said, when that light goes out, when the heart no longer can create its own light, then we cease to exist in the physical form. And then ultimately, we could talk about these concepts, these ideas, as till we're blue in the face, right? We could go and philosophize. But what's imperative, your purpose, your mission, my purpose, my mission, is to bring this wisdom, this knowledge, these relationships, this awareness down to earth. Bring heaven, head, to earth. Take the H at the end of earth, bring it to the front. What do you get? Heart.
Wow.
So bringing the knowledge into the experience to birth wisdom. So why is this concept of oneness and individuation differentiation necessary? What can it help us do? If we forget that we are one, we no longer have access to that infinite potential to shift or to change the way that we express ourselves. Many people that come to me, many people in this world, believe that they are that expression, they are that manifestation. Therefore, they have difficulty shifting into a new expression because they seed and anchor their identity to that single perspective. Therefore, feeling trapped, feeling limited, feeling stuck, feeling lost. Because they are all of those, as long as they continue to identify with limitation. So by simply opening up, becoming aware to the infinite, you can call it God, spirit, creator, universe, the word doesn't matter. It's a sound vibratory complex that limits something that cannot be limited. If we can open up to that perspective, like you said, I'll be a father soon. You're a mother. You were able to open up to that perspective when you went through an experience of having a child. But before you had your child, didn't your mind wander to, oh, what's it going to be like when they're one? What's it going to be like when they're two? So that seed of motherhood, that archetype, that perspective began to unfold, begin to evolve before it manifested into form. So too can the seed of the infinite be planted and unfold, and we can wonder and utilize that in our imagination to manifest and express infinite possibility. Now we can do this through training in an instant.
Really?
I'll take people through quantum shift experiences. I call them quantum shift. I call them quantum ascension experiences. There are many different things, depending on the perspective you want to look at. But this has real life application. To be able to shift someone in a single instant. I've had people come in for a single session and say, wow, I got so much more out of that than I have in 10 years of psychotherapy.
Wow.
But that's because psychotherapy, the Western perspective really across all boards, is only looking at the physical.
Yeah.
But what happens when we just look at the physical? Anytime we try to shift the physical with physical, we're going to meet resistance. Any force that is applied will be met. This is a Newtonian law. Will be met by an equal but opposite force.
Right.
So I came to this awareness in my experience that the physical, what we call physicality, is simply a process. It's change. It's not, there's no such thing as an actual object. It's not a pronoun that implies stationary, right? It's a pronoun. It's for now. That implies dynamicity, movement, change. They say the most stable structure in the 3D plane is a triangle.
Mm-hmm.
What is the Greek letter delta?
Delta, yeah.
It's a triangle. What does it mean? Change. The only constant in life is change. If we have a 2D grid, all right, I'm going to ask you and your listeners to just play with me here. We got a 2D grid. Remember from geometry, right? You're gridding out different graphs and whatnot. 2D grid. So in a 2D or two-dimensional plane, we've got an X and a Y axis. Don't worry about the specifics. Focus on the bigger picture. Out of that, that would be 4 quadrants of space. 1, 2, 3, 4. Math defines real as a whole integer positive number. Out of those 4, how many of those quadrants are real by the definition of mathematics?
I don't know.
1.
1?
1. So 25% of a 2D reality is real. Of a 2D existence is real. Now, we don't live in a 2D reality, right? We have a third dimension, at least. And then the fourth moving through time. But in a 3D, then we just add the z-axis. So we have the depth now. What does that do? It takes 4 quadrants and turns it into 8. Out of the 8 octants, how many are real?
I'm going to go with 1.
1. Yeah. This is a mathematical proof for the truth that there's only 1. If you took a 4th dimension, how many would be real?
I'm going to go with 1 all the way down.
5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. We live on a 12D Earth grid. Out of every dimension, the higher you get in dimension, the less and less dense you become, because the physical reality, what we call real, has less and less power, less and less weight. What are all of those other quadrants, octants, sections? They have a negative component to them. We can call it the yin, the darkness, right? The quantum, the abstract, the imaginary. In physics, calculus, of which is what defines our physical reality and the science of physics, there is a variable. It's called I. It stands for imaginary number. And it's equal to the square root of -1. But you can't have a square root of a negative number, because any negative times a negative is always going to be a positive. So calculus literally uses this variable imaginary number. What does that tell us? That our physical reality is built on what? Imagination. So is that imagination? Do we have control, power, or access to that imagination? Or is it controlling us?
So if we are trying to quantum leap, quantum shift, change our subconscious thoughts, limiting beliefs, all that good stuff, kind of, I'm grouping it all into one. Does it lie in our imagination? Like manifestation, all of this. Like when you were talking about before you were a mother, you had these visions of what it was going to be like to be a mother, and then you became a mother. Does this all just lie in our ability to imagine?
100%. Imago Dei, image of God. Imagine is to generate, imagine, generate an image in your mind. All is mind. That's the first alchemical principle, mentalism. All is mind. The universal mind. Universe, the one song. There's only one song that's playing.
So if our imagination is essentially ruling all, we are imagining, it's like a hypochondriac becomes sick because they're imagining they're sick. Our children can become all they want to be is because they are so in touch with their imagination. We kind of, once our kids start going to school and things, you kind of like stop that. You have an imaginary friend, just on like a more like daily level, less scientific. It's like we almost cut that down. No, we need to focus on this, as opposed to allowing them sometimes to go through that creative process of imagining. And as someone that's about to be a father, you want to foster that imagination in your children so that they continue to use it as an adult and can create the life of their dreams, the life of their imagination versus this mental vision that construct is putting on you. And what you're talking about is even being sick, like when you cured all your things, you were told you have this disease of the esophagus. You need to take this medicine to fix it. And this is what happened, and then you're going to be on this for the rest of your life. You're introducing a foreign substance. When you were able to take that away and go within, you can shift your mind and your imagination to believe you are well, you are healed, and now you do not need to prescribe to these medications anymore. So this thought that your imagination spans everything in your life. And that's how you become a creator being. And that's how you tap into your heart. And that's how you tap into the spark within. But it starts with your imagination.
Exactly. It does. Now,
which is amazing.
We talk about intention, right?
Yeah.
We talk about intention and imagination. Now, if we are going to believe everything that we're told outside of us that tells us, no, this isn't true, that tells us, no, we can't do this, no, I'm not healed, then what are we giving our power away to? We're giving our power away to the past. Think about the nervous system, all of our senses, right? Sight, smell, taste, touch, hearing. What information relative to time do they tell me? Do they tell you? What do your senses tell you?
Something that happened.
They only tell you, exactly. They only tell you about the past.
Yes.
So all depression, all stuckness comes from believing your perceptions and identifying and limiting yourself based off of your perceptions, which can only tell you the past. It takes time for a signal to be transduced between our computers, for light to be reflected off of my face, received by the camera aperture, to then come to your headphones, right, as sound, or screen as light, to be processed then by these different components of your brain. So everything that we are discussing, everything we say, everything we perceive is already the past. People talk about living in the now.
Yeah.
But most of them are living in the past present instead of the present future. And the only way to get there is to come into the heart space, because the heart is the gateway, the portal to that divine spark, which is outside of space and time, not limited by these perceptions.
Well, that, I think, I'm just kind of having a mind blown moment. All the things I've been working on, all these conversations I'm having are kind of coming full circle to me. I'm actually working on a course right now about, children and your spark and nurturing it in them and all this good stuff. But this is why I think so many people have a hard time connecting to their inner knowing or their intuition, which does, like you say, stem from the heart. Because your intuition, you can't attach a knowing to it. You can't attach a sense, one of the five senses. Your intuition is your sixth sense, as my mentor talks about, because it's, I don't even want to call it future tripping. It's just because that's not right. It's energy that hasn't happened yet. So you're not computing it the way you do with your five senses, like you described, something that already happened to you. Your intuition is informing you of where you should be going or guiding you on events yet not known to you. So you can't really absorb them with your five senses. So tapping into that intuition or your inner knowing is foreign to a lot of people because we aren't living in that present moment and we're not allowing things to happen and unfold because we're holding on to what we know, what our perception is. And I feel like this is all coming full circle to your subconscious beliefs, your limiting beliefs. All these different things come to play, who you are on an authentic level, whatever it is, because it's all attached to your past. It's all in your past because that's where you're drawing your knowledge from.
And you're therefore giving your power away to your past. So what is anxiety? It's simply the fear of recreating the past that you didn't want to experience anymore.
Okay, so that's different to me because we've talked about this. I deal with anxiety. I've had a couple of panic attacks. I'm on anxiety medication, and which I foresee a future where I'm not on it at some point in my life because I do believe I can be off of it. But I was always under the belief that your anxiety is about living in the future and depression is about living in the past. But what you're saying is your anxiety is the need not to recreate your past. Is that correct?
Into the future. So it is what you were saying is spot on. It is the fear of the future, but it's fear of a future created by your past. Because right now you can choose, and we can choose to release that anxiety right now. Do you want to release it? Do you believe you can release it right now?
I do believe
so
I
let's
can
go
release
ahead.
it. Yes. Uh-huh.
So take the perspective of the infinite, the creator, the divine spark within you right now.
Mm-hmm.
Just breathe into that. And choose in this now moment to release any attachment, cord, connection, identity, belief, perspective of anxiety and all of its manifestations. And let it simply dissolve. And as you breathe into this space, fill it in with the breath of divine unconditional love. Imagine, see that golden, white, radiant light filling every cell, every fiber, every atom of your being. Nurturing that childlike faith within you to imagine a future that is beautiful, joyful, sacred, and whole, created in you, with you, through you, for you, and by you. When you're ready, bring your awareness to your eyes and awaken.
That's crazy. I just had this huge vision, and it's the same vision I had during, I did a soul retrieval once, ages and ages and ages ago with this healer. And it wasn't, I only ended up going through one session just because of time and things didn't work out. And I really wanted to go back, but it took me to this image of me as a 5-year-old child sitting under a tree. And it took me back to that same exact place. And it was just so peaceful. And it was just crazy. It's weird. I feel a little bit different.
You are totally different, my dear.
That's cool.
You've called that ability to imagine and believe that you had when you were a child, reinstalling that processing, reinstalling that power and potential, that aspect of you that knew that you were always safe, that you have always been held by divine light, that you are creating everything in your life. And so it's returning that faith is coming back so that you can step into a space and express yourself as you desire, as your heart desires. They did a study in science. They had a gal who had they called it a personality disorder. Mm-hmm. And one personality expressed diabetes. But when she flipped, there was no diabetes instantaneously. So everyone walking around in the world with a disease, which is most people, whether they know it or not,
right,
has what science would call a personality disorder. The root cause of all disease is a perceived separation from self. We are all whole and perfect as we are. But if we don't have the awareness of that wholeness, of that perfection, then we manifest in limitation, which is dis-ease. We forget that we are everything.
Wow.
So it's bringing that awareness back and anchoring it into our heart and knowing that in any now moment, Courtney, literally, that's why I shift people like that. And it's not me doing it. I just provide the space. I hold the space for them to believe that it's possible, because anything is possible if we just believe.
Wow. So what does a world look like where this is understood and where more people are tapping in to this infinite potential? What does our world look like in that space?
True peace, harmony, abundance, exponential expansion. Technology aligned with spirituality is unstoppable. We would be able to play again. Right now, we've created a society that has suppressed the inner child. Mm-hmm. We don't play. We have so many adults walking around in the world, adult bodies, but really their emotional bodies are child. They're children. They haven't been able to mature and grow and evolve and be able to integrate the imagination into application and using the power of imagination, of generating an image to manifest that in spiritualized matter. Mater, mother, the matrix. Choosing the father, the pater, the patterns of creation resonating with the material, materia, mater, mother of the matrix, the matter. And then we can truly create a world, Courtney, and it can happen so quickly. It will spread like wildfire. I am telling you, the more that we get these messages out, the more that people have these experiences to show them that it's possible, it is going to spread like wildfire. I've already seen it. Mm-hmm. That's why I left with $400,000 in debt in medicine. This is where my greatest impact is. Before I was throwing a little pebble into the lake. Now I'm throwing a planet into the ocean. And this is what we are capable of. And it will happen in our lifetime, my dear.
Yeah. Wow.
And it's going to be beautiful.
I mean, I feel it right now. Just that little exercise that you just took me through. It's like, and I know this when I'm channeling and when I'm really connected, my hands tingle, my feet tingle. Like I feel like this like energy pulsing through me and I can feel it. But I mean, you're so good at what you do because there's a calmingness. I can be very intense and I can be very like, let's go, 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 go kind of a person. And I can feel it right now. I feel very calm and intense. But and I know we need to wrap up, but even you talking about this idea of the matrix and creating this new world, I just had a conversation with the Malibu medium, and that is, she believes we are creating a new world as we speak right now. And that we have been living in this matrix all due to conditioning. So, I don't care which way you're coming at it from, like you get to blend the science and the spirituality of it. She's coming from more of a esoteric spiritual nature. The message is going to get out by different messengers that will be received by people in the way that it needs to be received. But I love that. I love this idea that we are changing the world now. And I believe that. It's been part of my mentoring, is talking about the shift in consciousness and the changing of the world. And you can feel it. So it's beautiful. And I mean, you're so good at what you do. Thank you so much for doing it. How can our listeners get in touch with you to experience what you just took me through and learn from you? Because you have some really amazing things going on, I know. So tell us how to get in touch.
Thank you so much. May I say one more thing before I end there? Just briefly. So what you were talking about with the Malibu medium and this kind of process, this shift, this evolution, and it is evolutionary, which is beautiful. So we can understand it if we have the eyes to see and the ears to hear. Mm-hmm. So the process that a caterpillar takes to become a butterfly is a beautiful analogy to understand what's happening within our individual and collective experiences. So a caterpillar starts out first by consuming everything outside of itself because it asks itself, who am I? So it starts to consume everything outside of itself, eating everything, filling itself, this void within it, with the answers it believes to be responding to the question, who am I? It gets to a certain point in its life where it realizes, recognizes, becomes aware, awakens to the fact that it is not all of that out there. Or maybe it is, but there must be something more. So what must it do? It chooses then to create a container, a chrysalis, a vessel of safety, of peace, of calmness, one that's protected, so that it can allow itself, release its own autolytic enzymes to dissolve itself fully and completely into this energetic soup, denaturing everything. There are only two cells that remain in that soup: the immune cells of the old structure and the imaginal cells of the butterfly form. The imaginal cells have always been within the caterpillar. They hold the blueprint, the DNA, the expression necessary for the butterfly form to manifest. But it's only at that point when we can dissolve our identity of who we believed ourselves to be and ask the question, who am I? That we're able to then take a step back as pure energy, as that soup, and look at the immune cells of the old structure and the imaginal cells of the new structure. Any metamorphosis, any transformation, instantaneous or longitudinal, requires that process multiple times. I've gone through many death and rebirths. So that immune cells, they're trying to hold on to the old structure. They're like, no, you can't create something new. I'm scared of that. I don't know that. That doesn't resonate. I don't understand that. And the imaginal cells begin to replicate one by one as the immune cells take them out. They replicate more and more and more. The immune cells see them as foreign, as not self, until eventually the imaginal cells are able to out-create, coalesce, come together, ultimately building the butterfly form. And then, in order for that new system, that new structure, that new earth to emerge and be perceived by the world around it, it must go through a birthing process where it must struggle to break out of the chrysalis, the container, and in doing so, it's able to gain the strength necessary to fly or ascend.
Wow.
So people can find me at Apeiron Eros Wellness Academy.com.
I know. I'm just kind of in a trance and I'm visualizing everything you're saying. So I'm just kind of like, and I've heard the butterfly analogy before, but you did it so beautiful. And I just had this whole like vision of like, wait, okay, you're bringing me back out of my trance here. So yes, okay. Exactly. Beautiful.
So,
love it. Okay.
So
let's go back to
trance,
where you are.
That trance you're talking about and why we can do it so quickly is because we're tuning into what's a trance state. You're opening up to the subconscious mind. So what you're now doing just actively in that phase is you're actually bringing the subconscious mind, more of it, into your awareness because you're seeing the patterns. So when I speak in this way, using the analogies that I use, it's a multidimensional perspective, and you're starting to see all of those patterns within yourself, within your relationships with others, and within the world at large.
Yeah. You're good. You're good, Bobby. It's amazing.
You're good. You're amazing. Thank you so much
No, I love it.
for having me.
Okay.
But yeah, people can...
No. Okay, tell us exactly now, because I think I've talked over it a couple times now. So how can we work with you?
So you can find me at Apeiron, eroswellnessacademy.com. Are you going to have links by any chance, Courtney,
Yes,
in the
I will. I'll put
description?
all the links in the show notes. I just want you to plug yourself.
Okay, beautiful. So yeah, you can have individual sessions with me. You can hire me for group sessions. I am really moving towards the inspirational speaking, so I can get this message out to larger audiences. So if you're seeking for a corporate event or a group event at a church, at a gathering, any type, really, I can span all perspectives. I'd love to be there. I'd love to support you in this awakening consciousness. I also run retreats and corporate wellness initiatives and experiences to help to begin certifying organizations and companies to align with humanity, to align with empowering humanity to step into their true passion, power, and potential. Again, I do many different perspectives of healing. But if you are suffering in any way, shape, or form from any mental, emotional, physical, or spiritual disease, I can help you. I have done some pretty amazing things, and please reach out and chat with me. I offer a free empowerment call for 20 minutes where we can co-create a plan of action to get you living your authentic self, your intentional life as quick as we can.
I love it. And thank you so much. I really just enjoyed talking to you about this. And I feel like we could actually have many long conversations about it. It just, you very, very well take us into a trance, and it's beautiful. It feels good. So thank you for all of the work you're doing, Bobby. And I can't wait to talk to you again soon.
Thank you so much for all you're doing. It's an absolute honor to walk with you, and I can't wait to see you in person.
I know, and meet your baby girl here pretty soon. So we will talk soon. Okay.
Awesome.
Bye.
Love you, dear. Everyone, bless the day.
And that's it for today's Intentional Living with Courtney Myers. Thank you so much for listening. And thank you, Bobby Apeiron, for joining me and talking all about tapping into your true potential, transcending your subconscious mind, and really becoming the creator of your own reality, because we are that spark. We are that within. We are creators. And that is what it comes down to, creating the life that we want to live and a world that we all can thrive. So thank you so much, Bobby, for joining me. If you want to get in touch with him or work with Bobby, I'll have all the notes. I'll have all the links in the show notes. And as always, you can find Intentional Media at CourtneyMyers.com. That's where Intentional Living with Courtney Myers lives, plus all of the releases that we have coming out, from books to courses and so much more. So make sure to check us out, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.